What if coffee never existed? Welcome back to What If History, the show where we slip alternative possibilities under history's covers just to see if they'll squeal.
Hello, you intrepid explorers of twisted timelines and scandalous what-ifs. I'm your host, Trevor Wozni, your personal ringmaster in this circus of alternate realities. Today's bedazzling pillow talk? A world in which coffee never existed at all, and instead, the masses ended up embracing cocaine as their daily pick-me-up. Yes, my dear insomniac rebels, we're diving straight into a dimension that gave the goat herder's trick a hard pass and opted for something far more invigorating. Let's see how this sweaty fever dream pans out.
A planet without beans.
In our timeline, coffee sprouted in Ethiopia's highlands, seduced the Ottomans, and spread like a gossip-laden STD across Europe. But here, that luscious bean never even bloomed. No Ethiopian shrubs, no roastery aromas, no sultry baristas perfecting latte art. Instead, some lucky bastard in South America discovered the coca leaf early on, and the rest is hyperactive history. Picture a world that hopped right over polite sips of cappuccino and plopped its derriere on a mountainside of white powder. Before you cringe, brace yourself. 7 a.m. has never been so stimulating.
Early morning mayhem.
No coffee means zero. Get your butt in gear, slow brew rituals. In this lovely alt world, daybreak begins with a line or a leaf because folks want that pep in their step. Forget your gentle caffeine buzz. These people greet the dawn with bug-eyed mania. Offices look like poorly managed raves, jittery accountants scribbling on spreadsheets at warp speed, trying not to have a meltdown when the midday crash hits. Tea might still exist, but who's sipping dainty chamomile when your coworker is snorting the breakfast of champions? If you thought our Mondays were rough, try pairing them with an entire city half coked out of its mind and the other half in savage withdrawal.
No Ottoman coffee houses, no European cafés.
Historically, coffee houses turned gossip sessions into philosophical debates and revolutionary planning. In this hopped-up dimension, you get coca lounges, complete with fancy mirrors, scurrying waiters, and the hum of frantic conversation. Instead of steamy espresso machines, it's discreet trays of powder doled out by wide-eyed attendants. One minute, you're preaching about monarchy reform. The next, you're confessing bizarre fantasies to complete strangers before forgetting what century you're in. If coffee houses were about measured banter and subtle come-ons, these coca joints are about overblown confessions and impulsive hookups. Let's just say, the local authorities have their hands full.
Economic side-eye.
No coffee plantations, so Brazil, Colombia, and others become the cocaine belt. Colonial empires jockey for the best coca-growing real estate, fueling a new wave of imperial fuckery. Britain, ever the opportunistic world power, decides it can't get by on tea leaves alone. So you've got the British East India Company pivoting from gently brewed leaves to a robust line, pun intended, of top-shelf coca distribution. Meanwhile, the Ottomans never become the coffee kings. Instead, they dabble in hooking the Middle East on coca products or get overshadowed by European powder barons. On the bright side, no Starbucks on every corner, but brace yourself for sniff-and-go franchises dotting major capitals.
Culinary and cultural freakout.
Let's talk mealtime. No cappuccinos, no macchiatos, no luscious mocha cake. Instead, we see the rise of coca-infused pastries, powder-dusted croissants, and extreme choco-coca brownies that have your brain dancing the Macarena by the third bite. Dating culture. Think, care to share a line and chat about your childhood traumas? Classy, right? Meanwhile, tea houses are left catering to grandparents and anxious souls who can't handle the roller coaster. Is it more fun? Maybe. More stable? Hell no.
Revolutions and morning grumpiness.
In the real world, caffeine kept folks passionately awake for midnight pamphlet writing. But cocaine mania, that's a revolution on a hair trigger. Picture the French Revolution supercharged, a raging mob blitzing the Bastille at dawn, snorting lines off bayonets by noon, and spontaneously rewriting the Constitution in between. Productivity might skyrocket. Then comes the paranoid meltdown. The pattern repeats, mania, crash, mania, crash. You might see quick bursts of brilliance overshadowed by spectacular flameouts. Political life, Expect treaties signed at 2 a.m. in a coke-fueled frenzy and reneged on by sunrise. Who needs stable diplomacy anyway?
The grand takeaway.
No coffee means no cozy cafe culture or soul-restoring morning brew. A world fueled by cocaine instead of caffeine is a roller coaster of mania, crashes, paranoia, and entire economies built on white gold. Revolutions, frequent yet short-lived, like raging bonfires that burn out when the high wears off. Science and art. Could see a dozen feverish breakthroughs followed by existential despair. Meanwhile, entire societies run the risk of collapse when supply lines falter. Is it all doom and gloom? Not necessarily. Imagine the mesmerizing rush of half the planet gunning at top speed. But honestly, the come-down is about as appealing as day-old fish. Humanity might yank itself forward in sprints, only to collapse in a tangle of frayed nerves. Let's just say there'd be fewer leisurely philosophical strolls and more frantic chest-thumping, gotta do it right now mania.
Good night, and stay strung out. Or not.
So there you have it, my midnight historians, an Earth that never got to cradle a steaming cup of Java, but instead dove headlong into the powdered deep end. Next time your alarm rings, take a loving whiff of that Coca Jolt aroma, and remember, it could have been worse. You could be marching to work with a suspicious dusting under your nose, one sniff away from Meltdown City. Thanks for tuning into What If History, the show that applauds weird alternatives but is happy our real timeline stuck to simpler vices. Grab your Coca Jolt, yes, the real stuff, and revel in that slow, sweet drip of sanity. After all, one revolution at a time is enough, don't you think?
Good night, and watch out for missing beans and rogue lines.